What's up, BJPen.com? Here we are again, another week, a new guest panel. As always, I am joined by George Matthews for BJPen.com radio. What's up, George?
What's going on, man? How you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Interesting weekend last weekend with all the fights and all the injuries, huh? Kind of crazy.
Yeah, pretty gruesome injury actually. It was pretty disgusting. What do you think?
I mean, there was a couple, but the John Jones one, yeah, man, that was pretty fucking nasty.
Yeah, that was the main one I was talking about. Not really. I mean, the eye pokes were kind of weird, but the mangled toe.
What about the guy that like totally broke his hand too, or dislocated his thumb?
Oh yeah, Yancey.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty gruesome too. Nothing was worse than man Jones's toe. I couldn't even look at that on screen. Like I had to look away. I legit had to like look away and was like, I can't look at that. It's
Can't even.
disgusting.
Yeah, it was pretty gnarly, man.
Yeah, what'd you think of the fight itself, though?
Well, it went exactly how I thought it was gonna go. So I didn't really give Sonnen much chance at all. A lot of people were saying that the fight was gonna be close, calling it close, and saying that Sonnen is gonna do a good job, and it's gonna be closer than people think. But I quickly dismissed all that talk, man. No way.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that one. I didn't really see this as being a much of a nail biter, but yeah, it about went the way I thought it was gonna go. When Jones got to the ground, he beat the crap out of him, you know.
Yeah.
But
It,
other
it,
than that, what about Belcher and Bisping?
what about Belcher and Bisping?
Yeah,
Man, um, I had a feeling that Bisping was probably gonna take that fight, but I gave Allen more of a chance than what he showed. I thought he would do better than what he did. You know what I mean? Like he didn't really look that good in that fight. He looked a little lethargic and slow, and didn't seem to be able to like find his rhythm or get his timing. And kind of, you and I talked about it after the fights. It kind of brings into question like, is his eye, fully recovered? Can this guy see out there? You know what I mean? Like, what's happening? Because Alan Belcher, uh, the current Alan Belcher we're seeing now doesn't look like the Alan Belcher of old that was knocking off fools left and right.
I was really surprised that he looked uncomfortable on his feet. I didn't know if he was injured or I don't know exactly what happened there, but he looked like he was uncomfortable on his feet. Like he didn't, he was the slower guy, but he wasn't landing very much, and it was weird because Belcher's supposed to be he's a pretty good striker.
I mean, yeah, he's a well-rounded fighter, but his kickboxing, he hails from that Duke Rufus camp, right? I mean, that's one of their guys, and he's supposed to be elite level on the feet. He's been calling for a fight with Anderson Silva for years, but let me tell you, man, that fight, no way, no shape, no how, no Anderson Silva for that guy, not that fighter that showed up last weekend.
No, and if he finds himself with on the wrong end of too many of these decisions, he may find himself on the chopping block, let alone looking for a fight with the pound for pound king.
Yeah, big
You
news,
know.
big news is freaking Czech Congo, man. That guy bounced from the UFC. It was all came out today in the news. Pretty surprised at that one.
Yeah. I got part of the story. I know that we updated it. I didn't get a chance to read the update, but what exactly had happened there? The UFC didn't release him, right?
Yeah, they didn't release him. Well, I guess what happened was he was up for renewal. The Roy Nelson fight was the last fight on his contract. The UFC before his fight offered him a four-fight deal to renew. He declined the renewal, and he lost the fight. Now the UFC is saying that they'll no longer be seeking his services. Rampage went out on Twitter and said nobody knows what's going on. Czech Congo's not going to fight for the UFC. He's bouncing on those guys just like I did, you know. Basically saying that nobody knows the whole story. That whatever, those guys are tight. Congo and Rampage are tight. They've been tight for years, and I guess Congo's going the Rampage route.
Do you really think that there's like something there though? I mean, I think it just sounds like utter complete bullshit to me. I mean, if there was really some like, you know, grave mishandling of something. I mean, why aren't like there's how many fighters are under contract with UFC at this point? Hundreds? I mean, 300 plus?
It's a significant amount, yeah.
Yeah, 300 plus we're talking about here. Probably maybe even closer to 400. But at any rate, why is it only like three people ever complain? Yeah, only like even the guys who are uh getting quoted as pay like as not making that much money. A lot of things aren't what they seem. I just would, touch on one thing. Even Nate Diaz, you asked him last week, people were upset about your disclosed pay. And then what did he say? What was his response?
Yeah, his money's not what it shows. I mean, I know that for a fact.
You know
The
that.
UFC had they give bonuses and pay-per-view points and all types of things like that, and they actually do take pretty good care of their fighters. Should the fighters get paid more? I think obviously, yeah, of course they should. But I mean, when you're a guy like Nate Diaz, I don't think anybody has to worry about him not getting paid his fair share. Um, I do know from somewhat for firsthand dealings of dealing with these guys that yeah, there's a lot of stuff that is undisclosed. You know what I mean? That is actually in writing that the public will never know, and that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, I mean, it typically, what you make is supposed to be your business and nobody else's because it can create like havoc in your workplace. In any workplace, you could be working at Taco Bell for all it matters, man. If there's six of you guys working in there, and five of you find out that one guy is making $1 more, the other five are like, wait, what's going on? And there's always reasons for things, but I just don't see it. It just looks like to me that, I mean, he lost some fights. And it's not like he was on the wrong end of decisions. I mean, he got knocked out. He's been stopped. He didn't look good. Like maybe there's reasons for all that, but you know, it just I don't know that I believe that it was like some huge that there's some huge backstory that everybody's missing or
Well,
usually.
no. Here's what I think. I think Rampage. Chet Congo fought for the UFC for 7 years. I think it's either 16 or 17 fights with the promotion, and he went 11-6-1 with them. Okay, out of his last, I think 7 fights, he only lost 2 bouts. So I think that the UFC, if they had their druthers, they would have kept him. Okay, I truly believe that because of Congo's relationship with Rampage Jackson and the way Rampage handled his exodus from the promotion, that Congo's kind of like this. He's on the same boat, man. You know what I mean? I think they're like ride or die, bro. That's just what I think. Um, up on our show. Who do we? Let's talk about our guests before it gets too late. We have Burt Watson. I gotta give him a call and get him on the line here soon tonight. He's up first. Then we go with the last reigning welterweight champion of the Strikeforce promotion, Tarec Saffiedine, who kind of shocked the world when he beat Nate Marquardt in the last Strikeforce event. Followed by Pat Healy. He beat Jim Miller last weekend in the first bout of the pay-per-view card at UFC 159. And then we round out the show with the Ultimate Fighter Season 17 winner Kelvin Gastelum.
Yeah,
Pretty good panel.
yeah, 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 definitely. And you never get a chance to really talk to Bert outside of when we're at events, so it'll be cool to have him on.
It'll be interesting, man. Yeah. Let me um let me try to get him on the phone while you entertain the listeners, George.
While we entertain the masses.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got we're kicking it off with Bert, and then like he said, Bert, Tarek, Pat, and Kelvin. Pat is that one is kind of close to the quote unquote fam here because Pat trains with BJ a lot, and I think he's been really underappreciated, and it was really a coming out party for him, especially for a guy that's got like uh, you know 50 fights, professional fights. He's got so much experience. He's fought and beat a lot of good guys. He's fought in a lot of different organizations, and he's kind of come up and um, he's kind of, he's getting his due now, and he picked off a really, really tough guy and a perennial contender. And I'm not sure how many people were really giving Pat a chance in the fight against Jim Miller. I mean, he was an underdog, but yeah, it was a hell of a fight and a good performance. So it'd be good to talk to him later. But like I said, we're going to be starting off with Bert, and you know, the babysitter of the stars is all. That's always going to be fun conversation. So
Yeah, I'm interested. I'm interested in talking to Burt, George, and we got him on the line right now. Mr. Watson, are you there?
I'm right here, baby.
All right, we've been excited. We've been real excited to get to talk to you today, man. So thank you very much for taking the time. And I know it's you're off time right now, right? We got a couple of weeks without any events, so I'm sure you're looking for.
Yeah. It's a little funny, but it's a pleasure being with you guys. I appreciate you guys having me on, and I've finally got some time to kind of slow down and rest a few days, man. And it's a little strange, but it's a good thing, baby.
Right on, right on. Let's get right into some questions with you, Mr. Watson. Last weekend we had UFC 159, and I know you're always backstage. Everybody at this point, if they watch the UFC, they know who you are. How much of the fights do you actually get to watch? Do you get to watch them there at the event, like in the screens in the back, or are you just really focused on business and keeping that thing organized back there?
Well, I spend all week with these guys, a whole week, kind of giving them a comfort level and doing the things that these guys need to get a comfort level, to get in that cage, because that's not an easy thing to do. And I've been around a little while, so it's not only all week, it's been a lot of years that I've spent around these guys. So it's real hard for me because they've become like my children. Of course, I'm old as hell and older than most of them, so they are just that. And it's real hard to work with them all week and take them to the cage and see somebody lose a fight. That's real tough, baby. So, I don't watch. I kind of take them to the cage. I make sure they have what they need to prepare and get that comfort level to get there. And once they're in there, I'm in the back looking at that monitor, but my eye is fixed on that clock because I know I got to get the next guy out, and the next guy has to be ready to go and have to know when to go. So it's more time working and getting it done than it is watching the fight.
So you mentioned about these guys being like children to you, and really, you've been there. Your face is kind of synonymous with these events now. I mean, when we get to events, we see you in the hotel standing there when there's no cameras around. I mean, you're always there taking care of things. But take us back to the beginning. What is your first memory of when you saw mixed martial arts, and what did you think of it?
Wow, that's a long time ago. My first event was UFC 30. Which was back in 2001, and I really had no idea what MMA was. I knew what Kung Fu was. I knew, Bruce Lee, and I knew Bruce Leroy, and I had an idea of what it was all about. But actually, that there was such a thing as organized MMA, I really didn't know. Of course, until I met Dana and got the introduction and got a shot to work it. And I mean, because of the fact that I worked as a coordinator, I wasn't focused on watching and seeing what was going on in the cage. I was more interested and focused on getting my job done and kind of doing what it is that I do than I was watching what was going on. But when I did get a chance to see it, man, it was that was a scary thing. I looked at it and I said, "Boy, these are some tough boogers, baby." and they are unbelievable athletes. They all can fight. Everybody on this level can fight. They all can fight. They're all dedicated to the sport, and commitment to it and doing it right keeps you around. I think I met my man BJ at UFC 31. I think that was his first fight. That's the first time I met him, and that was I think he fought. I think it was Gilbert, but that was way back. that was back in 2000. So it's been a while, and the revelation, man, of these guys, the technical skill levels that these guys have gained, and I've seen it progress from one level of it being a MMA ground situation to stand-up guys learning how to box, and the combination of jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, and I'm still in awe when I get a chance to look at what it's all about and what it takes to get in that cage. I'm still in awe, baby.
It's amazing, but when you started, Burt, did you expect it to get as big as it is today?
Not in my wildest dreams. In terms of me not knowing what the sport was, I had no idea, and so I had no inclination of the potential of the sport, of what it would be, 5 years or 6 years from now. Had no idea. But when I got to, because as a coordinator, I just transitioned from boxing to MMA. So my job was kind of seeing things and kind of coordinating and organizing things to a degree, and working with people. And working with Dana White and the group of people that they had doing the television production, Concom, and meeting Lorenzo Fertitta and those guys, just kind of seeing basically how the operation was going and how things were being put together. I saw this damn thing growing legs. And I knew then, when you get legs, you run away. So, I saw the potential of it growing legs, and I knew when it got those legs, it was going to take off. But the foundation was being put in place very strongly, and obviously accurately, because right now it's unbelievable, and it's still growing.
It is.
So when did you first notice, when did you first sit back and say, man, this thing just got really big? Because like you were just saying, you were there in the year 2000, and it was way different back then. So at what point did you think, like, did you look around in the arena and you were like, whoa, something like this is just really took a big different turn now. Something changed here.
Well, when I started walking around, they started recognizing me. I knew something was crazy. That's first. I knew something was going on. But coming from a boxing background, when you normally you go to a boxing event and they've got 10 fights or 8 fights, they usually know the main event, the co-main event. The other guys are guys probably just having their pro debut or trying to get a fight, and a lot of people there don't know them. MMA, I think when we got to about the UFC 38 or so, they knew everybody on that card. They knew if there were 10 fights, they knew all 20 fighters. They knew their names, what kind of food they ate, where they trained, who they trained with, who they liked, who they didn't like. And I saw that, and at that point, I honestly had never experienced that part of it before on a whole card. In boxing, or just across the board, where everybody knew everybody. There was, you had guys that came to see, guys on the card, and, guys had their families and people that travel to see them. But the fans were so knowledgeable, and even now more so. They knew everything. They knew everybody. They liked everybody. And then again, the UFC made their celebrities and their fighters accessible to everybody. All of those fighters were accessible, so that combination just kind of helped this thing blow itself out of the water, baby. And it's still the same, and it's getting bigger, and the fans are getting more and more, and it's still a lot of fun, and it's still a good ride.
So you were just saying you came, like I said, you came from a boxing background. When you compare, like based on your experience, when you compare the two, like how do you compare the events and how boxing puts on events versus how the UFC does, and what can each learn from each other, or is boxing doing something wrong that they need to pick up from the UFC? Like, what do you think about that whole
Well,
when you compare them
I
two?
think if you just look at it overall, MMA and the UFC includes everybody. It lets everybody participate. It lets everybody get a chance to know everybody. It exposes it's everybody to everybody. It works on the feeder system, meaning the amateur and the program that they've got with the tough finale, or the those things. Those are things that maybe boxing didn't take full advantage of, and it eventually, in the long run, when it came time to have somebody pull that cart with name recognition, there weren't too many names left. But there was a time when in the sport of boxing, you had 10 or 15 guys that were big names at the same time. And eventually it just didn't work.
Let me ask you this, Burt. Do you ever miss a UFC event, or are you at all of them? Do you have that really rigorous schedule and follow every single event? Because I know we sometimes don't even see Dana White at an event here and there on the international cards. But what about you? Because I can't really recall a card that Burt Watson wasn't at. But then again, I might be mistaken.
Well, I've actually missed 3 fights since I've been with the UFC. My daughter got married, which I probably would have had to move if I didn't go to that or give her away. My son got married, which was the second UFC event, and they decided to get married almost a month apart. And this was way back when. And then just recently, because our schedule is getting so crazy, we had a fight in, I think, Australia maybe, and then Atlantic City the same night, or a different night. Friday night in Atlantic City and Saturday in Australia, I think it was.
Right.
And it was kind of tough for me to get across the Atlantic in 5 hours. So, I didn't make that. But I've made every UFC, Strike Force events, WEC. I've done all of them since I've been here.
That's pretty impressive, man. So you basically, I could probably assume that you carry one of the most rigorous schedules in mixed martial arts. Is that ever going to change?
I know it's pretty crazy.
It's crazy.
But then again, I've kind of learned to do crazy pretty damn good. It's one of those things where, and our schedule, just last month we had 4 fights. We had 4 events in the month. We have 3 and 2. So, yeah, I have a pretty hectic schedule, to say the least.
Yes,
but,
sir.
I don't know. I just kind of keep, and, because of the fact that I'm still having a good time and still enjoying it, it's not really hard. The hardest thing for me is packing and unpacking. I do not like to do that. But I got to do that to get my stuff out of the suitcase.
Yes, sir. Now, what we're starting to see lately with the expansion of the UFC and how fast everything's grown, we're seeing like regional ring card girls. We're seeing the Fuel TV broadcasting team with Kenny Florian and John Anik. The UFC keeps on they keep on bringing in new people to kind of supplement the increase in volume of events. But do you ever see that as far as somebody else in your type of position there, like the coordinator position, to where they're gonna need to bring in somebody else and kind of help fill your shoes on the events that you can't make as they.
I hope not. I like my job and I need the money.
That's awesome.
So every every car, I don't care what type of car it is, you don't put the right gas in it, it's not going to run long. And every car runs out of gas, and everything gets old. And, eventually, there's going to be a time I'm probably not going to be able to handle this pace. I'm not looking forward to that time, but it's eventually going to happen. And, right now we've got, they have a full, and you yourself said how they're supplementing people because of the schedule. So that also means that they have a lot of people. And they have a pretty huge operational staff all over the world that they can transition people. And the people that I use in different places, there's a process. There's a system that I have in place. And, everybody's learning it and everybody knows it. Eventually, one day, somebody will probably have to step up and, take it over. I hope they don't walk up and down that hall yelling and screaming like I do, baby. But,
So take us through that whole process, though, Burt. Like a lot of viewers have seen you at the weigh-ins, and myself and Pedro have been to a lot of events and seen you there. But a lot of people don't know what you do and the amount of time and effort you have to put into every card because you're watching after so many guys. Like, take us through that whole process and kind of at a typical event.
Well, process starts with the guys getting there. They got to get there, and when they get there, the bottom line is that at the end of the week, the fighter, his camp, the camp members, and everybody with him has to have a week of nothing but positive energy and whatever it takes to give them a comfort level to get to the end of the week. The room's got to be right. They got to be picked up at the airport. They have to be fed during the course of the week. That means they have to be issued per diem. We take photos. There are video shoots. There are press conferences. There are open workouts. There's a lot of other things aside from the fighter training, cutting weight, and preparing to get into that octagon to whoop. I know we're probably on a family show, so I'm going to slow it down a little bit. But there are a lot of things that they have to do to prepare themselves in addition to what has to be done to make the event work. So my job is to take, or what I try to do, is to take as much of those ancillary issues, the little things, the things that I feel that fighters shouldn't and don't have to worry about. I try to lighten that load along with their camps and along with other people from the operations department. I do those things, and make sure the workout rooms are set up, that there's certain temperature, that there's water and there's towels, that the mats are clean in the workout rooms, that the transportation is there for them to get back and forth to where they need to be. And then once they get there, fight night, make sure that those guys are motivated to a point of frenzy. But that's just for me personally, to make sure that when they get in that cage, they know what it is that they got to do, and that's no joke. And their heads got to be right, and they got to be motivated and pumped up, and I got to be motivated and pumped up to go all night like that. So I know where they have to be and where their heads have to be. So I just kind of put all those things into work during the course of the week as a part of the process. And, so far, I'm knocking on wood, but so far it works. And, it'll work until somebody decides that they need to do something else.
Well, I think you have to be doing a great job because your tenure at the UFC has been long lived, and I know that I know that several fighters say that they rely on you to kind of for them to flip that switch. They wait for the Watson call. You know what I mean? They wait for you to start hyping them up, and they get their game face on and they get ready to go. You know, so you're doing a great job. I have one more question for you, Burt, and it's kind of like maybe more of a request than a question here. If as us as a radio show, BJPenn.com radio, let's just say in a hypothetical universe land far away, whatever, radio show versus radio show going into the octagon, it's BJPenn.com radio's turn to leave the locker room and make that walk to the cage. How would you motivate our show? Can you pretend and can you role play with us real quick, like BJPenn.com radio, let's go, let's I want to hear it in the Burt voice.
Well, I can tell you something, baby. Right now, we've got about 5 minutes left before we leave from point A to point B. We got about 5 minutes left before we roll in that hole, baby. You better get right because you got all night to get it done. You got about 5 minutes. All right, baby. It's time to roll. Time to roll to the hole. We rolling! Yeah! All night long, baby. This is what we do and why we do it. And nobody does it any better than we do. It's your night, your fight, so get it right, baby. I'm done.
That was spectacular.
That was amazing. Thank you, Mr. Watson.
and I'll tell you guys, you know, for my friend BJ Penn and his family, you know, those guys are unreal. They're unbelievable. And everybody in the UFC, we're all families. We're all extension of each other. And those guys are special people, man. And I appreciate you guys and your fans and everybody else out there, baby, because if it wasn't for them and you, I guess I wouldn't be having a good time, baby.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Watson. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Best of luck, and I can't wait. I can't wait to share that sound clip with my buddies over here. Like, look what Burt Watson just laid down for BJPenn.com radio. I really appreciate your time tonight.
All night long, baby. This is what we do and why we do it. Later.
Right. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Yeah, you wanted the soundbite? There it goes, Mr. Burt Watson.
Yeah, that was fun, man. What an interesting interview. You know, it's like I said last week, I think we never get enough time with these people. I really liked, you know, our Nate Diaz interview when we went off the cuff last Thursday and did a little special, an hour-long special with Nate Diaz, because we got a whole hour with one person, you know? And the conversation, to me at least, maybe I'm just too much of a fan, but I really find every single conversation with no matter who the personality is we have on with us, like, just very fascinating to get everybody's different sides of the story, you know? So we had 25 minutes with Mr. Burt Watson, and I don't think it was long enough, but I'm grateful for the time.
No, it wasn't. But you know, just one thing real quick: the Nate Diaz interview. Several people told me it was the best interview they ever heard. It's pretty hard to beat an hour-long Nate Diaz interview, but we got it for you here. And you know that, you know, maybe we should do something like that, you know, every now and again. We'll grab somebody for an hour and we'll do something in depth if we can get something really cool like that. You know, we have a lot of, you know, we've got some friends, so we can call some people.
Yeah, that Nate Diaz thing was good, man. I think I don't even know if I told you this, George, but we got over 50,000 listens on that show, which for internet radio, I mean, that's like pretty fucking bombastic, bro. We fucking crushed that shit.
Yeah, no, it was man, I did the interview with you, okay? And I had to go back and listen to it 3 times, 4 times. It was that good. You know, there was so much stuff in there. And what was funny is like somebody was like, "Oh, you forward to 11 minutes and 50 seconds." I was like, "Yeah, there's some good stuff at 11:50. I guarantee you there's some really good stuff before that 11:50 too." It was the whole 53 minutes, however long it was just pure gold.
Yeah, it was awesome. You know, after we aired the show and after we got off the air and, you know, put out the replay and the interview was making the media rounds and fans are commenting and the whole Twitter thing is going nuts and everything's going nuts, and I hit up Nate, you know, and I was like, bro, you know, people are calling this one of the best interviews in MMA history, and his lone response to me was, whoops. He knew what he did, man. He knew he went off. You know what I mean? Like, I was just like, come on, bro. Is that all you got to say? Whoops. Just,
Yeah, it was a good interview though. I mean, uh, Dave Meltzer thought it was really good. I mean, it was quality, man. If you haven't listened to it, and I think a lot of people have heard it by this point, if you haven't listened to it, you need to check out our archive because it is it is some pure gold material right there. I mean, it really is some
yep.
good stuff.
Yep. Yeah, it's true. Good point, George. If anybody missed that interview, you can go to bjpenn.com/radio, and you can look up the archive under the bjpenn.com radio tab. You'll also see the other archives for our other shows. We got Late Night Cage Side on Mondays, Fisticuff Radio on Sundays. Fisticuff last Sunday, this past Sunday, had one of John Jones's coaches on the show talking about his injury and the turnaround time for that. Monday night, Late Night Cage Side had a real good interview with Matt Hughes. So the other shows are doing good too. They're pulling out some quality guests and some quality content.
I know. Didn't we get some challenge laid to us though?
Yeah, but I didn't listen to it.
Oh, okay. I mean, do you want to address that right now, real quick, and just throw it under the rug? I'll address it real quick. How about this? This is what I think of challenges. Okay. When I played sports, I never gave a shit about what the JV squad asked of me, okay? So I don't give a shit this time either.
Oh,
So
ouch.
there it goes. That's what I think of challenges.
I'm pretty sure that George just told the Late Night Cage Side guys to get on our level and then start challenging. Oh, if I heard that right, I don't know. I'm just trying to put it a little bit more blunt, I guess. Get on our level, boys. Get on our level. Then
Yeah.
we can talk challenges.
That we're not going to address it any further than that, okay? I'm not even going to address it. Other than that, I'm going to pretend it didn't even happen, okay? We're just going to move on.
Ouch.
At any rate, we still have Tarec Saffiedine, Pat Healy, and Kelvin Gastelum, and those three are all going to be awesome guests. They've got big things coming up. Kelvin just won Ultimate Fighter, and he's definitely put on some hell of a performance against guys that he wasn't supposed to beat. I mean, nobody gave him a chance in hell against Uriah.
Yeah, I mean, dude, that kid's undefeated. He won the Ultimate Fighter in the middleweight division. Says he's gonna drop down to welterweight. We'll get a chance to talk to him and see what his plans are exactly and what we can expect from him. Obviously, he was the youngest fighter to ever win the Ultimate Fighter championship. He's also, I believe, the only fighter to be picked last in the house and win the Ultimate Fighter championship.
I thought there was one other guy that did it really, really early on.
That got picked last.
Yeah, was there not? Was he the only guy that's ever done it? I thought there was one guy in a very early season that had done it.
There could be, man. There could be.
What did I don't remember. I thought there was another guy. There's been a lot of seasons, and it's not just U.S. seasons. Now there's been like overseas seasons. So, it's kind of hard to keep up with. It's not like we've only had 3 seasons and you can just remember each of the winners. There's been some winners that made an exit from the UFC and you never heard from them again.
That's true.
So, but yeah, I think he's got a good career ahead of him. And we'll see. Like you said, he pulled off a huge win in the finale. Then here's another interesting one. And I was talking about this when you were getting Burt on the air. Is that we've got Pat Healy. And I don't think a lot of people may not realize the significance of Pat Healy to bjpenn.com and Team Penn. But go ahead and kind of give him the history there, because a lot of people don't know that.
Well, here's the main thing about Pat Healy. Okay, this kind of is the same thing what we were talking about earlier about last weekend's card. Nobody gave Pat Healy really a chance in hell. Jim Miller has proved himself time and time again in the UFC, right? Jim Miller has been one of the guys who's been in the top 5, teetering on a title shot for many years. Everybody thought Pat Healy was going to get stomped on. I told everybody, keep your eyes open for Mr. Healy because he's got that size. He's a good grappler, and he has a really solid chance at beating Jim Miller. And George, you know the argument. well, Jim Miller's a black belt and so on and so forth, but Jim Miller got submitted in the third by stronger, bigger Pat Healy, who just completely worked him over and ground that guy down until he basically got choked unconscious.
Yeah, the black belt thing, I don't know that that really even matters. It matters, but come on. Pat Healy's got how many fights? You don't think he's rolled around with black belts before? He rolls around with them all the time. He's one of BJ's main training partners for the camps. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, you don't think he's seen black belt stuff before? I didn't see it like that. I thought it depended on the kind of fight that Jim Miller fought, and he decided he wanted to fight the I'm a better grappler and grinder and wrestler fight. And that is the wrong type of fight to fight with a guy like Pat Healy, who will seriously wear you out. And he's got good submissions too.
Well, that was the good thing for Healy, I think a lot of his fights are kind of John Fitch-esque, no offense to him. He's a winner, but he's a grinder, you know what I mean? And for his UFC debut to go out and finish his guy, I think that was really an important thing for him to do that. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't just get the win. He didn't grind the guy down like he usually does. He went out there, he choked Jim Miller until Jim Miller passed out, and he got his hand raised at the end. So he not only won, but he left a real solid statement in the eyes of the fans and everybody around. George. So yeah, man, Pat, he did his thing, bro. What else can we say?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But and what I was saying about Tarec is that he's got big things coming also. He's another guest we have coming up also, and he's got big things. He's got big things coming up also with Robbie Lawler, and both of those guys have made their presence known in the welterweight division, and I guess they're kind of looking to make that run at the title. It's kind of log jammed up there because you got GSP looking for, I don't know, talking about Hendrick, super fights. You've got just a lot of guys waiting for their shot. But those are two fighters right there, both Lawler and Saffiedine, who are definitely in the hunt. And this win could propel each of those guys, right into that picture.
Robbie Lawler did a really good job against Josh Koscheck. I think where Tarec Saffiedine, he's going to have a little bit to prove in the welterweight division. I think that he shortchanged himself when he didn't take the Carlos Condit fight. He was offered that fight on short notice, mind you, but a lot of guys would have taken that fight, and he opted out of it. Turned out Johnny Hendricks got that fight, and the whole UFC card got shuffled, and he kind of missed the ball there.
Well, let me ask you a question. What do you think? We were talking about it real quick. The fight got announced. Josh Koscheck and Damian Maia. What do you think of that fight?
All right, so what were we talking about, Mr. Matthews? I believe we were talking about Mr. Tarec Saffiedine.
Hi.
Tarec, how's it going, brother?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks. Thanks for taking the time. I know you just got back from a trip from Germany, right?
No, actually, I just came back from Belgium, from my country. Yeah.
Belgium. Yeah. What brought you over there? What brought you over there? Just some family time, a little bit of vacationing, or was it like business and training?
No, a little bit of both. Mostly, family, eating some good food, and a little bit of training as well.
Okay, excellent. How excited are you to be in the UFC now? You're coming off a huge win over Nate Marquardt. You're the last reigning Strikeforce welterweight champion. I think it's a very exciting time for you in your career. But what do you think?
I think it's it's something that I've been waiting for a long time. I'm really, really excited to be part of the UFC now. I was my goals as my career went on were to be the champion in Strikeforce, to be the first Belgian to become champion in Strikeforce in a major organization in MMA. And obviously also, I wanted to follow and be the first Belgian to go to the UFC. So, I can't complain. I'm really, really happy right now, and I'm really looking forward for the next fight.
Okay. There was a couple months back now, I guess it was, you got offered, or at least it was rumored you got offered a fight with Carlos Condit, right? It was kind of a last-minute thing. Johnny Hendricks ended up getting that fight. The whole card got shifted around. But is that true? And if that's true, kind of give our listeners the thought process behind turning down that fight, because you could have really pushed yourself right into contention with the win over Condit.
Yes, it was frustrating at the same time, to turn down that fight, short notice, and I wasn't healthy 100%. So, everything together, there were more cons than pros. So unfortunately, I had to turn it down. But looking back, I'm happy with the decision that I made, and I'm just looking, for the future and what's next, and hopefully, the Condit fight, happen one day. I would love to fight him if I have the time to get ready and I'm healthy. But right now, I'm really focused on Robbie and excited for the next fight.
Let me ask you a question, Tarec. In regards to Robbie, you were offered that fight. You're taking that fight now. It's not for a few months, but was there any hesitation to want to take a fight with Robbie Lawler? He was coming in from Strikeforce, and were you wanting to fight a contender from the UFC roster, or were you just like, oh, just give me any opponent, I don't care?
Obviously, I don't really choose my opponent. I never did in the past, and in the UFC, is going to choose my opponent, and they say, you're going to fight next to Robbie, so I say, okay, let's do it. So he's a top 10 fighter, he's a dangerous fighter. I believe, that a win over anybody in the top 10, gets, closer to a title shot. So, I'm happy with the matchup, and it's going to be an exciting matchup as well. So everything together is great.
Do you are you specifically focused on just going after a title right now, or are you just thinking, oh, I want to get more fights in, and get some more time in the octagon, and if a title shot comes, it comes, or are you thinking, hey, I want to get 2 fights in and fight for the belt?
Obviously it depends on who I fight. As I said, Robbie's the top 10, so it puts you up there after a win over him. It puts you, closer to a title shot. I always, as my career went on, I always took one fight at a time, one step at a time, and really, right now I'm just focused on Robbie. What's after, it will come, and I don't really think about the title shot, even though it's everybody's dream to go to the title. It's obviously something that I think about, but right now I'm really just focused on Robbie and get the win July 27th.
Now, obviously, people look at you as the Strikeforce champion, correct? So there's always going to be this aura about you and a possible fight with the UFC champion. We just saw that a couple weeks ago. The Strikeforce lightweight champion Gilbert Melendez fought the UFC champion Benson Henderson. Was a part of you disappointed that they didn't offer you like a unification bout with George St. Pierre, or are you happy that to kind of get in the UFC and get your feet wet first before you go straight to a shot at the title?
You know, it's a tough call because I know, you know, I believe I don't know, but I believe that if Nate Marquardt would have won against me, he would have probably get a title shot or a fight against the number 2 contender or something like that. I know that for a fact. I mean, not for a fact. Sorry. I'm pretty sure that would have happened. You know, the other thing is, you know, I don't have as many title defense as, you know, Gilbert or Luke or, you know, any other champion in the Strikeforce. So, you know, coming from Strikeforce, just winning the belt, you know, obviously it would have been really nice to get the title shot. You know, I would have said no. But I believe, you know, I still have to, you know, prove a little bit to the UFC fan. And I don't mind, you know, getting 1 or 2 fights before to get to the title shot. And then, you know, I'll when I believe that, you know, I deserve the title, I'll definitely go for it.
Okay, what do you think about this fight with Robbie? Stylistically, you know, it's a striker versus striker fight. He has made a career out of putting really heavy hands on dominant strikers. I keep going back to the Melvin Manhoef fight. You know,
Yeah.
Melvin was tearing him up, made a mistake, got caught, got knocked out. So what do you think about this fight? And stylistically, you know, how are you going to beat him?
You know, as far as Manhoef and you know, the fight with Manhoef, it was a crazy fight. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I believe Manhoef, you know, just tried. He was so focused on his leg that, you know, he just forgot about, you know, Robbie's power. Because I believe that if the round, if you know, if he didn't knock him out, I think that Robbie would have stopped the fight. You know, his knee was totally gone. So, you know, it was a crazy fight. You know, I enjoyed watching it. You know, he's known for his power. Even when he fought at 170 before, he was heavy-handed. You know, his wrestling is not bad. His ground is not bad. You know, he's going to try. I believe he's going to try to stand on his feet. And, you know, try to look for the knockout. And you know, I'm going to do what I'm used to do. You know, work on my striking. And I believe, you know, technically on the feet, I'm better. And you know, I'm going to keep it the way I want to keep the fight, you know, standing if I need to, and just do what I like to do, and I believe in my skills, so we'll do my way.
Do you believe he's a tougher opponent than Nate Marquardt?
He brings other thing on the table. He's southpaw. He's already a southpaw. I think he hits a little bit harder. But on his feet, he's maybe not as technical as Nate, but he definitely hits harder. And so I haven't watched a lot of his fights recently, so I'll just have to sit down with my coach and, you know, watch some of his tapes. But it brings the other thing, definitely, yeah.
You know, Pedro was talking about this just a second ago, but he was talking about the Melvin Manhoef fight with Robbie Lawler, and the interesting thing about that fight that he brought up was that Robbie was just getting torn up on the feet. He was getting
Manhoefed.
Yeah, he was getting fucked up. So what I'm saying is that, you know, how do you know, he came out of nowhere, he clips the guy and puts a guy down that was literally beating the shit out of him for, you know, the entire fight. So how do you avoid something like that? Do you just try to avoid these wild exchanges, or do you just do you just walk in there and say, oh, you know what, I'm a striker too. If he wants to if he wants to throw toe to toe, let's do it.
Yeah, you know, it's the thing with Manhoef is that you know, when he saw that he wasn't checking the kick, he just kept going. And Manhoef is so explosive, so powerful with his kickboxing that, you know, once he sees that you are, on the defense, you just keep attacking. He was so focused on his legs, I guess he just totally forgot about, that he could get counter. When I fought Marquardt, I was kicking him, but I was still, worried and aware of his counter, from his left or from his right or whatever. I was aware of what was going on while I was kicking. And I think Manuf didn't do that. He wasn't setting up his kicks. And Robbie is dangerous on the exchange. So I gotta keep my fight the way I want it and keep it technical. If you get into a heavy exchange with him, that's when he's dangerous. And I'm gonna do it, my way and try to avoid that.
So let me ask you one other thing, in regards to the skills and how they match up. We just made the mistake just now of labeling you as a striker predominantly, but you're a mixed martial arts fighter. You have a lot of MMA fights, and you've been training in all disciplines for a while. Are people underestimating your ground game? Is there a lot of things that people just haven't seen? You have a submission game off your back and from different positions too?
Yeah, I believe so. I've been fighting for a while now, even as an amateur, and I competed in a lot of different styles. And I think that when I went to MMA as a pro, most of my fights, even though my first few fights, I submitted the guy. I always, keep it standing because I felt good, and my opponent wasn't able, really to exploit his stand-up. So I never had, to really take him down or, work on the ground. But I can tell you that every day I work on my wrestling. Every day I work on my gi and no gi. I work with world champion here in California. I work with an NCAA Division I wrestler. So I'm not just focused on my striking all the time, even though it's most of my background. I train in each and every discipline that MMA needs, and that's what makes me, I believe, a complete MMA fighter.
All right, excellent. Let me ask you this, Tarec. You're coming in from Strikeforce.
Sure.
Your Strikeforce peers have been doing phenomenal in the UFC. These guys are beating all the UFC guys. With very few exception. I was always a big Strikeforce fan. Friends with Scott Coker's son. Me and Jordan were good buddies. So I went to every single Strikeforce event as long as I can remember. Crushed me when I found out the UFC bought Strikeforce, actually. But now that's all in the past. I want to know, how proud of you are you? How proud are you of your peers, your Strikeforce peers? And do you expect that for the Strikeforce takeover to continue?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. The rise of all the Strikeforce fighters so far. It's crazy, and I believe that coming up from Strikeforce, we had something to prove. A lot of people look at us like the Division 2 of MMA. UFC being the Division 1, and so I believe we go into the UFC, proving that we belong there, and we are hungry for the win. And I'm really not proud, I would say, of being a part of Strikeforce and going into the UFC and see all those guys, doing so good. So it's really exciting, and it's looking great for the future, and I'm gonna keep it that way as much as I can.
That's great. You're one of the few guys under the Strikeforce promotion who they built you from their Challenger Series up to being a world champion for the promotion. And now there's a guy, when you fought on your last Challengers card, Tyron Woodley, right? It was your only blemish on your Strikeforce career. He's now in the UFC. Mm-hmm. He knocked out Jay Heron fast. Is that something you're looking forward to, maybe meeting him now? Like, look, we both fought when we were fighting on the Challenger Series. we both rose to championship level for Strikeforce, and now we're in the UFC. Would you like to try to get that loss back?
Yeah, why not? It's a fight that I would love to, a loss that I would love to erase and, get a rematch one day. But obviously, he has fights, he has a fight set up and everything, and I have my fights. And but honestly, I don't really think about it right now. I'm really just focused on Robbie. But down the road, why not? Why not?
Okay.
Let me ask you this. With your style, you go in for the kill. You're always standing. You're trying to take guys out, and that's really what appeals to the fans. Especially you hear in the UFC crowds. There's a lot of booing, even when the groundwork is good. Sometimes you hear booing. Is there any more pressure as a guy who predominantly likes standing up? Is there more pressure to be exciting, or are you just concerned about winning?
Kind of both. You know, how do I say that? The fact that you're going to the UFC, and being a UFC fighter, I believe it's really important to win and keep winning. But at the same time, you want to be as exciting as much as exciting as you can, as much as you can. And I believe great fighter that the way they are, they win, and but they are exciting at the same time. You don't have to knock out or submit somebody to be exciting, because the fight can be boring during all that time, but then you ended up knocking him out. I believe a fight can be exciting for 3 rounds, but you put the fans on their feet for the all 3 rounds. It's exciting as well. Obviously, if you knock somebody out with great fashion, it's the best way also, or submit him. But I believe a mix of both. That's what the fans looks is a fighter that wins, but in great fashion, and put their their money worth and put them on the edge of their seat. So I'm trying to do both. And I believe the fans like to watch me fight and enjoy watching my style.
Yeah, the reason I was asking is because the reigning 170-pound champ gets a lot of flack for not being that exciting, and
Yeah.
if you continue your run now, you're 4 fights in a row now. The only blemish in recent memory is to Woodley back in 2011. But you could end up in a fight with the current UFC welterweight champ George St. Pierre. Tell me, this is the last question I have for you really right now, is that for me is at least is how would you've probably been watching him fight for his entire career, his entire reign. How would you match up with him, and how would you beat George St. Pierre?
It's it's a good question. The common point I have with George is that we both come from a karate full contact style. So we started the same, Kyokushin Kai. I kind of have the same similar style of him, and that would be awesome to see who has the best karate style in an MMA match. And I would love to test myself against him. And I believe, I have George needs somebody, who can bring difficulties on the feet and have a good takedown defense. And I believe, I can give him trouble with those 2 areas. And down the road, if I'm a contender, I'll be happy to to fight him and see who has the best already.
All right, yeah,
Hello?
exactly. I was kind of very curious about how you thought you matched up with him because of the the style matchup seems to be like, oh well, we got to stop the takedown, but you also have to have somebody who can strike with George St. Pierre on the feet, and
Yeah,
you're definitely the guy to do that. With your striking background, the question always remains, how do you stop the takedown? But again, if you've been
yeah,
working your wrestling every day like you have, that could become a problem for him in the future, right there.
yeah, definitely. It's you know I people know me as a striker, but as I said, I'm working every day on my wrestling. You know, USA, most of the guys are really good in wrestling, and that's the reason why I came into the US is to improve my wrestling, improve my ground game, and here they are the best, and I'm working every day to kind of keep the fight standing up, and be able to stop the takedowns and put on good fight for the fans, and keep it stand up as much as I can.
Amazing. All right, Mr. Saffiedine. Um, I really wish you the best of luck in the upcoming fight against Robbie Lawler, and I want to say thank you from all of us at bjpenn.com for taking the time today and talking to us, man. Hopefully we can get you on one more time before the fight, maybe when it gets a little bit closer before you get too involved with the last preparations of the fight camp, and we can just get an update from you.
I appreciate it, Pedro. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
There he is, Strikeforce Import, last champ, Tarec Saffiedine. How do you see that fight?
I don't know, man. I think that anytime you count Robbie out, you pay for it. But again, Tarec, honestly, he surprised me in the Marquardt fight. You take one glance at his record. He has a wealth of international experience. He's fought for Dream, he fought for Strikeforce. Now he's on the big stage. I think that for his personal growth, the Lawler fight's a good matchup. There's not a lot of pressure there for him to perform against one of the UFC's bigger names, and he was the champ of a promotion that Robbie Lawler was in. I mean, by all accounts, I think on paper Tarec should win that fight, but Robbie Lawler, like I said, you can't ever count that dude out, man. He's always one punch away from a win.
I got Tarec in that fight, and I can't see him being finished. I don't think he's even been finished in mixed martial arts, as far as I know. I don't believe so. I believe he's lost decisions. Now, granted, Robbie Lawler does have cannons for hands, but the speed and technical ability could be a problem. For well, you can say what you want, but Melvin Manhoff was lighting him up,
He was lighting him up, yeah, he was.
and that wasn't just power; that was technique. He was lighting him up. So, you know, it's going to be a good fight, and it's will likely be contested on the feet unless Robbie does have a wrestling background. I guess he could go to the ground, but
He doesn't go to the ground, man. Well, he's not gonna go to the ground, dude. They're gonna stand and trade, and I mean Tarec, as long as he stays away from that big power punch, he's gonna take it. Robbie's gonna go. Guaranteed, he's gonna go headhunting. You know what I mean? That's what he's gonna do. That's what he does. That's how he's made his name since he was at lightweight in the UFC way back in the day. You know what I mean? And it's gonna be an exciting fight. I don't see how that fight cannot be exciting. Um,
yeah, it's gonna be a good stand-up fight, and yeah, it's still a few months out. I think it's almost 3 months out still. That one's not till we're in the middle of the summer when that one finally goes down. But
that's crazy. That's a long time.
yeah, but then, think about how many cards there are. But that's how far out we are. We're that's a let me just look at the notes here. July 27th at a familiar arena, Key Arena in Seattle. Um,
Oh, it's the UFC on Fox card.
yes, yes, yeah, the old UFC on Fox card from a few months ago. Um, but yeah, it's not for a few months, so we've still got some time to let things happen. Camps are gonna go down, and who knows? Somebody could get injured. We may not see the fight. God forbid.
Well, hopefully not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's one thing of note, and I didn't know how that interview was going to go. Admittedly, I've never really talked to Tarec before. Most of our guests on the show, I kind of have some sort of relationship, be it in the past or present relationship. But Tarec, he's just a guy. He worked for Strike Force. I have a lot of Strike Force contacts, and I wanted to get him on the show. I thought he'd be an interesting guest. Sure enough, he really was. Sometimes it's kind of hit or miss with people, especially when you don't have a relationship with them prior to an interview. They can be real short, but he was kind of real forthcoming, and I don't know, man. I thought he gave some pretty good answers, and he was real honest with his responses to us.
I I had to ask him about GSP simply based on the style matchup.
That's good, and he gave you honest answers too. A lot of guys would completely dismiss that. A lot of fighters in his situation, not even making their UFC debut yet, they wouldn't even touch the GSP question. You know what I mean? But he was just like, boom, yeah, whatever. Let's talk about this.
Well, let's look at let's think about this logically here. He's got he's 14-3. He was the last Strike Force champ. He just picked off Nate Marquardt, who was one of GSP's main training partners for a long time, and a top guy at middleweight. A big name in general, and he's been fighting at welterweight. If you're fighting at welterweight and you're coming up, are you not looking at George St. Pierre?
Yeah, but most guys ain't gonna talk about it. Like
Maybe, yeah. You won't talk about it.
You haven't even made your UFC debut yet, but yeah, I mean, there's people out there that will do that, but I'm just saying, as a whole, most guys are gonna be like, generic response. I'm focused on my debut. I'm focused on, for example, Robbie Lawler. I'm not thinking about title hunts. Tarec, on the other hand, he's like, yeah, I want that
Well,
title.
I can only think that he's envisioned the matchup before in his head. He's like, hmm. Well, if how would I match up with him? He probably watched the fights. When he's watching GSP fight Diaz, I can imagine that every welterweight in the top 10 that was watching GSP and Diaz was saying, "Hmm, this is how I beat this guy. How do I match up with this? What do I do if he's doing this to me?"
Yeah.
And I don't think Tarek's any different. It was pretty cool that he kind of gave us his breakdown on how that fight, on how he thought that fight would go.
Yeah, I thought so too.
So we still have Pat Healy and Kelvin Gastelum.
Yeah, we got Mr. Healy on next. Probably be calling in about 5 minutes. We got about 5 minutes to kill, and we'll get Healy on the line. Let's talk about that fight. What did you think? Who were you picking in that fight, George? Healy or Miller? And be honest. Don't just say Healy because we got him on the show in 5 minutes, and I'm gonna bust you out when he gets on the show if you picked against him. But I'm just curious.
No, 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 no. I kind of didn't give what I said it depends on how the fight was conducted, like how each guy wanted to fight. If Pat came out and went right after Jim and just wanted to take his head off, I thought that Jim might try to move around for a little bit and just kind of box. I thought that if Jim played his what I've seen as a typical tactic as he does when he wants to play the wrestling and grappling game, that he could run into some problems because that is exactly what Pat does. I mean, that's the exact way he trains. That's how that's how he fights. That's how he beats guys. That's how he crushes guys' wills like that.
Yeah, he does.
And basically Jim fought Pat's fight, and the grappling exchanges. Yeah, Jim's a black belt. The lineage, I believe, is a Renzo Gracie lineage. Also, I don't remember exactly who gave him his black belt, but he's a legit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and he's very talented on the ground. But a big, strong wrestler who also knows Jiu-Jitsu can wear on you. And that is exactly what Pat did. He wore him out. He beat on him. He grinded on him. And then he submitted him. So, black belt, schmack belt, I got your black belt right here. He went and took that.
Yeah. What do you do for Pat Healy now? Like, say you're Joe Silva. Who do you give this guy?
Well, the fights that you can get you pick off a guy like Jim Miller, you kind of have you've kind of put yourself into the mix of where where you're looking at some of the top guys. You have to look at the lay of the land really. Who's that? It's kind of clogged up. You've got Pettis going down at 45, but he was a good 55 fighter. Um, Maynard is tied up. Um, Nate going to 170. You
Yeah,
know,
Nate's not going to take a fight with Pat Healy. I don't see that happening. No offense to Pat, but we just had Nate on last week, and he's like, he was ready to call it George St. Pierre. Like this guy, he just wants the biggest names possible, and Pat is not that name right now. Not saying he can't be in the future, but currently he is not.
I think that you got to give him a really good tough opponent. I'm not sure who you give him. The cool thing is for Pat at that weight class is that at the top of the division is a lot of wrestlers and a lot of grapplers, and they're all very talented. But stylistically, I think he matches up pretty well against a lot of guys.
He does, and he's a big lightweight, dude. That's the whole thing. That's what I was telling everybody last week. Is he's big, you know. He used to fight at welterweight. Didn't he beat Carlos Condit at welterweight? I'm pretty sure he did.
Yeah.
Um, so, I mean, you're talking about a guy who's super tough, dropped down to lightweight. He's a big dude, and he's gonna cause people a lot of problems in that division. Our only hope is that he can entertain while he's doing it, because that's also a key component when building yourself in the UFC.
Well, he got to finish.
He did.
He finished the guy, so it's not like he laid on him.
I
I
mean,
mean that
they got fight of the night too. I mean, they got fight of the night. So that fight was entertaining. That wasn't just like a two round snoozer capped off with a third round submission. I mean, that fight was back and forth. It was all over the place. It was a good fight.
those boys were throwing down. It was a hell of a fight, and you know, Pat, that was it for me. That was his coming out party because you know Jim has a good, solid reputation in the UFC, particularly in the lightweight division, where he is picked off. I mean, he just had he had an awesome fight with Joe Lozon. I mean, that fight was awesome. I will say that about Jim Miller, man, is that he can have some really awesome fights if you put the right opponent in there with him.
Yeah, put the right opponent in there with him, and he has some really good fights. That's true. That's a good opponent, man. For Pat, maybe is a Joe Lazon. I don't
The
know.
only thing is that
That
Jim just beat him.
Yeah, but so what? That doesn't matter. I mean, you can't stack it up like that, really. But I mean, I guess you can. But
I guess there's always like you've got Cowboy in the division too. It just depends, really. As good as the win was, it's not going to get him a title shot, unfortunately, because of the way the the division is sitting right now and all the guys that are waiting. It's just not going to happen. But you're going to have to give him a top opponent. The question is who would you give him at this point? What would you do?
I'm thinking Lazon. I like that idea. Joe Lazon versus Pat Healy. Or like you said, Cowboy. That's another good fight. A Cowboy versus Pat Healy. They need to give him somebody that the UFC fans recognize, somebody with a name. I think he's owed that. Pat Healy was the number one contender in Strikeforce. He was supposed to fight Gilbert Melendez for the title. That fight never happened, not because of Pat, but because of Gil. And they put him in the UFC. They gave him a top five guy in Jim Miller, and I think they need to continue on that pace of at least giving him a name brand guy, somebody that he can try to build himself on. He deserves that.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be a tough. It's going to be a tough road to that belt for anybody right now because, like I said, there's just so many people waiting. But picking off Jim Miller, you got to give him a good opponent at this point. And I mean, you got to give him a better opponent than what Jim was, and Jim was considered one of the top ranked guys. And you're right. I don't think a lot of people were giving Pat his due in this fight simply because they didn't know him. And if you just look at his record, you would, even if you had never watched him fight and you were like, oh, I've only been watching MMA for the past 3 years. I haven't really watched or been watching the UFC for the past 3 years. I haven't seen Pat fight. If you simply looked at his fight finder and just if that's all you did, you would think, okay, he's had a lot of fights. He's lost some, but let's look at the context of who he's fought, at what weight classes. I mean, most of his losses were at 170 pounds.
Yeah, I mean he's only lost one fight since 2009, I believe. And that was to Josh Thompson on the Strikeforce banner. No shame in that whatsoever.
I think I was like, yeah, so like 2000. Yeah, let's see, 2010. So yeah, he's had a hell of a run, and you know, uh, really, he has a good shot, to stake his claim towards the top of the division there and really make a run at the title. And it'll be interesting to see who they give him. With Nate moving up, and you have TJ and Gray who are locked into a fight. You've got Frankie who was a champion down at or champion at 155 down at 45. You've got Pettis at 45. So a lot of the guys that were there are not there now, but you still have a lot of the core guys there, and so it'll be interesting to see who they give them. We'll have to see how the UFC decides to play their hand with this fight.
Yep. I'm sure one person who would like a say-so, and that is Mr. Healy himself, the man we're talking about right now. I got him on the line. Pat, how's it going, brother?
It's going good, man. Thanks a lot for having me on the show.
Oh, no, the pleasure's all ours. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for taking the time.
Oh, without a doubt. Wouldn't have even considered not doing it.
Right on, right on. So you're coming off a big win, man. I'm gonna go ahead and say biggest win of your career, UFC debut, one of their top 5 guys, in Jim Miller. He played right into your hands. You submitted him in the 3rd round. What's life like for you right now?
Life is good, man. I mean, kind of pretty excited about my performance and just the whole opportunity and the way everything worked out. I think everything kind of turned out as good as I could have hoped.
Right. A lot of people, man, and I'll tell you this, honestly, a lot of people were counting you out in that fight. I think it's because they didn't really know who you were. Strikeforce was the second promotion in the U.S., probably the world, right? But still, a lot of the Strikeforce guys don't get the same credit as the UFC guys do, And Jim Miller being one of the staples at 155, people were giving him the edge. But you really went out there and you proved that you belong in the mix. You were promised a title shot in Strikeforce. You didn't get it, So how does it feel to kind of prove those doubters wrong?
Oh man, it feels great because I think all of us over there in Strikeforce kind of had a little bit of a chip on our shoulder. We were kind of felt like the media and the fans or whatever were treating us like kind of second-rate athletes. So. To get in there, and especially against one of the UFC's, top guys and guys who's been up there at the top for a while and do well, man, was really justifying to me for sure.
Take us back through that fight a little bit, or even your thoughts going into the fight. Actually, let's go back. Let's take it a step further back. Actually, when you first saw Jim as an opponent. What did you think? Because the way that it was just portrayed and Pedro and I will go through message boards and we'll read through just various opinions, and we get people sending us and tweeting us opinions and things like that. And it just seemed like the common theme was, well, Jim is just a talented grappler and a black belt and blah, 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 blah. But it just seemed like that your skills as a grappler and a wrestler, and that, you got so many professional fights, that you were kind of dismissed. Like, what did you think about the style matchup when you first looked at it on paper?
To be honest, when I got the style matchup, I couldn't have been happier because, Jim Miller fights my type of fight. He likes to get in there, kind of has a grinding pace. really kind of pushes the pace, and he comes on really strong early, and I think I'm a guy who comes on really strong late. So I just looking at it, I thought it was a really good matchup for me. I'm a lot bigger than him. I don't really feel like anybody can outgrind me. I feel like that's, I do that style as good as anybody in the world, and I think I showed it against Miller.
So, so the fight's going on. That was a crazy fight, by the way. I mean, it was a hell of a fight. Was there anything in there that you were like, man, I wasn't expecting that? Did he do anything that caught you off guard and surprised you?
He rocked me pretty good right at the end of the first round. I don't know if I could say that surprised me, because I know he's certainly a dangerous, striker and got dangerous ground and pound. But he certainly rocked me during a scramble right at the end of the first, and I really needed that kind of round to recover. And it was pretty good timing for me that it was right before the round ended. So he definitely put me on my heels a little bit, but I knew it was going to be a tough fight. That's one thing I was mentally prepared for. Is man, I'm going to have to face some adversity in this fight, and I think I responded to it pretty well.
Amazing. Pat, let me ask you this, man, because I followed the story well, as I'm sure a lot of MMA fans out there did, but, like I said earlier, you were supposed to fight Gilbert Melendez for the Strikeforce title. That fight never happened. Gil pulled out a couple times because of injury, and you were kind of left on the sidelines. Now that you're both in the UFC, he's coming off a loss to Benson Henderson. You're coming off a win to Jim Miller. Do you think that fight makes sense now? Do you think that the UFC should try to put that together? Is that something you'd be interested in?
I think it's an interesting prospect of a fight for sure. I definitely want to fight somebody who's, in that kind of like top 5, certainly top 10 rankings, and I think he's still with his performance. I mean, I thought he beat Benson in the fight, so I think he's as good as anybody out there. And if they wanted to set that fight up, I certainly wouldn't be against it.
Is there anybody else out there that you kind of wouldn't mind? We were talking about this before you came on the air. Who does the UFC give you next? Because while the lightweight division seems like really clogged up with a lot of potential contenders to Benson Henderson's crown, you have guys like Anthony Pettis who are going down. Frankie Edgar left the division. Maynard is tied up with Grant. One of those guys is going to fight for the title. A lot of guys are busy right now, so who do you kind of look at, or is there anybody? Do you even care?
No, I have kind of like looked at that, and it is like you said, like those top 4 or 5 guys are all kind of busy. It's kind of a bummer, but I mean, I think there's a lot of fights that could make sense, and I certainly want to fight somebody who has a good, well-known popularity in the UFC. I want to still try to build my name. I still think, coming over from Strikeforce and not being in the UFC, I still have a lot of recognition, to build up with the fans, and I'd want to fight somebody who's definitely got a lot of people talking about him, so I can try to steal their thunder yet again.
Pedro was suggesting Joe Lozon, since we're playing matchmaker here live on the air. I was thinking, that you'd be looking for Gilbert or somebody like that, simply because I thought you'd want to fight. There's just not many guys that are ranked above you at this point, Pat, because a lot of the guys either have left the division, they don't want to fight at 145 now, or they're tied up in fights, or or guys you beat.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think you nailed it on the head. So, I mean, the thing about 155 is, you don't want to go too far back, because there's so many tough guys there. And, I'd rather fight a really tough guy, with the chance to move, that ranking up to 3 or 4 or something like that, than fight one of their really tough guys who's, just kind of in the middle of the pack, and, then you end up going through a tough fight and not gaining much ground. So certainly want to try to get that, guy who's ranked above me for sure.
So let me ask you this. You have a 7-fight win streak right now. The only blemish was to Josh Thompson in 2010. Otherwise, I think you'd be, around an 11-fight win streak at this point. What changed for you in the last few years? Like, what has changed for Pally, where he's become such a dominant fighter in this division?
I think the drop to 155 was huge. I kind of was wanting to be a 170 pounder when I really wasn't quite that, and I think dropping down to 155 made a big difference. And then, I got to give BJ a lot of credit since this is BJ Penn Radio, man. I learned a lot from going out and training with BJ the first time, and, it's something I continue to do. And, a lot of things that I learned from him, I brought with me back home, as far as focusing a lot more on my technique and like really trying to get better in these times when I don't have a fight right away. And you don't always have to be sparring hard and going hard out there. It really pays to take that time and work on your technique. And that's definitely something I picked up from BJ.
That's awesome, man. What do you think? Let's just switch gears for a little bit since you brought it up. I try to not bring up the boss man too much on the show, but what do you think of the state of BJ's career? You think he should drop back down to lightweight?
Yeah, man, I do, and it would suck. I would say BJ is like the one person I would never fight. But him coming down, he would instantly be a top guy at 155. So. And it might suck for me, but I would certainly love to see him do that, because I think that's where he'd be most successful. And he's got a lot left in him, and a world championship at 155 again, I don't think is a very far outside the realm of possibility.
Actually, since we're talking about it, what do you think about the difference between 155 and 170? Because BJ's like always saying, well, the guys are just, faster at 55 and they're stronger at 170. He goes, so just pick your poison. Is it like that for you too? Because every fighter is a little bit different, and they that their strengths and weaknesses and things that they gravitate towards and are better at. It's different for everybody. So how do you see it as the differences between 55 and 70 when you fought different guys? Because you fought the Carlos Condits, who, that's a guy ranked in the top 3 at 170, and then you're in the top of the lightweight division. So you've kind of seen the top of each division. So what do you think when you compare the both?
I just think like a guy at 170, and I train with Mike Pierce, and if you've seen him, he's as big as a 170 pounder as you can get, man. The guy is massive at 170. And I always like look at him and look at me, and he just has like a bigger frame. He's just a bigger guy. And even like if we were down to that one, both at that 170, or him even lighter and stuff, he's just, his hands are bigger, his wrists are bigger. Like, he's just a bigger frame, and I think that goes a long way on being able to absorb punches, and just moving a guy with such a massive frame around becomes a lot harder and a lot more tiring. So, I just really look at the frame of the guy is so much bigger that it's just kind of it's just much of an advantage to overcome, I think.
What do you think about all the success the Strikeforce fighters are having, Pat? Because Strikeforce is really, once the merger happened and the Strikeforce doors shut, the guys from Strikeforce, yourself included, have really been making a huge statement in the UFC. So what are your thoughts on that? And are you proud to kind of have followed suit with the rest of your peers from Strikeforce?
Yeah, I'm certainly proud, and really, man, it was a point of pride, when I especially saw all those guys, like the way Thompson performed against Diaz, and even the way Gill fought, in his decision loss. I was kind of like got really pumped up the week before, and was like, man, I want to carry the torch just like those guys did, you know. But I think it all kind of comes down to us all having a little bit of a chip on our shoulder, like coming in, like not just wanting to come in and win a fight or come in and fight a guy in the middle of the pack and just win. We all want to come in and fight one of their best and show people what we can do. And I think that it certainly has motivated me, and I think it motivates a lot of the other guys too.
Amazing. Do you expect your Strikeforce guys to continue this stride and to keep making waves? Obviously you do for yourself, but what about the other guys?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely expect them to keep suit. I mean, looking at the top talent, man, like I think we match up really well, and I'm really excited to see how Luke Rockhold does coming up here. I just look for him to continue because the skill level of the guys is certainly there, and I think that's just going to we'll keep proving that.
So, we talked about it a second ago, the different weight classes and things like that, and you also alluded to the switch from 170 to 155 as being a catalyst, is really helping you come into your own in that weight class and string together a lot of big wins. But how easy, because Pedro was talking about it. You're a big lightweight. It looks like in a lot of the fights you can just bully guys around the cage, that they just can't deal with your power and your size, and that it just becomes a lot. It wears on people. But is that a tough weight cut for you, or is it more difficult now, or is it about the same? What do you think about that?
I think it's actually kind of I've got it down pretty good. I mean, I don't want to say it's easy, because I don't think weight cutting ever can be. But I mean, I think I got it down to where it's not like super hard on my body, and I think I can come back where I'm fighting, pretty much at 100% when I'm in the ring. And I think I've gotten a lot smarter as my years at 155 have gone on, and now I'm working with a strength and conditioning coach and who knows a lot about nutrition and stuff, Phil Claude. He just was kind of taking that to the next level. He was there for the whole weight cut this time. It's something I've never had. I never had a guy there just to help out and work with the weight cut and make sure it went well. And I can't tell you how much of a difference that made. And, he made sure that I was going in the ring at 100% for sure.
Any reason why you had him for the Miller fight and you hadn't had him around for previous fights? It was just this big debut, and you really wanted to go the extra step, or is this something new you're trying?
No, I mean that too, definitely. But I just started working with him about before the Kurt Alabot's fight, so we've kind of been building that trust, and it's hard. I know I can imagine a lot of other fighters can relate to this, but it's hard, like giving up that trust of like your weight cut to somebody, because if you've made it, you know what you're doing, you know what you like to do. It's pretty nerve-wracking, like kind of putting it in somebody else's hands and going, okay, I trust you with this, like get me help me get down here and the best way you can. And it took a lot, but it was a slow thing over time, but now he's really earned my trust, and I think he's got has really been helping me.
Amazing. Pat, was it really validating for you to get Fight of the Night bonus?
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, I think you gotta, I think there's extra emphasis in the UFC of having a exciting fight, and that bonus certainly makes you feel like it does, for sure.
Right on, right on. Let me ask you this too, man. I'm sure this has probably been asked to you a million times. I, unfortunately, do not know the answer. George may know, but since I don't know, there's a chance that our listeners don't know either. The nickname, where'd it come from? Can you give me the background on Bam Bam?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story now. Back when I was in high school, I I was a bit of a drinker and stuff back then, and my friends always used to say whenever I'd start drinking a few, like my eyebrows would lower down, and like they could just tell with this look in my face that I was like a different man, and they would be like, "Oh man, he's that's your alter ego, Bam Bam." Because I just turned into Neanderthal, man, and I'd be clumsy and breaking stuff, or getting into fights and just over the stupidest things, So I earned the nickname Bam Bam for behavior like a Neanderthal. So it's something I'm too proud of.
Hilarious. Awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that with us. Pat, I just want to say before we let you go, man, congratulations on your win. You know, we're all family. You know, you're part of the Team Penn family. I'm sure you know that by now. Like, you praise BJ. You've helped BJ out in the past, and I know that we all appreciate that and have a lot of respect for you. So thank you very much for taking the time out with us tonight, man.
Hey, Pat, before you go and you say bye, what are you spending the bonus money on?
I've bought a few guns so far. I bought a shotgun, I bought a carbon 15, and I bought a 40 caliber XD. So nothing besides that. But I have put some money into my arsenal a little bit.
Okay, zombie hunting. I got you.
That's awesome. All right, brother Pat. Thanks again, man. We'll be in touch soon, bro.
Hey, I can't thank you enough, guys, for having me on.
All right, have a good night.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Mr. Matthews.
Yeah. Man, Pat's a funny guy. See, he went out with 130 grand in bonus money? And he bought guns. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool.
That's how you spend your money. Go get some weapons.
He's a good guy, man, He really is.
Oh yeah, Pat's an awesome guy, man. Yeah, he's real low key. He's real laid back, and he's a cool guy, man. He really is, and I'm glad he's getting this attention and this money and everything that he has coming to him because he's worked hard, man. He's got a lot of experience and he's paid his dues.
He has, I really thought him giving credit to BJ Penn was very, very nice of him. I, for one, am kind of a small BJ Penn fan, so the fact that he gave him such a high regard and some props, kind of put a smile on my face more so than most interviewees we have on the show.
Yeah, well, I think I had the conversation with you when we were talking about his fight with Miller. People were like, "Oh, he's a black belt," and I just kept on laughing. I'm like, "Dude, do you realize the black belts that he's had on top of him, like dealing with, he's had to deal with before?" I hardly think that he was like too nervous about Jim Miller's black belt at that point. He's been in there with a lot of good guys, and he trains with a lot of good guys. So he was going to be more than prepared, and he was. He came in there and he finished that fight.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. So I guess the question remains: what's next for Mr. Pat Healy? Same kind of thing with Josh Thompson. What's next for Josh? Josh knocked off Nate. Pat knocked off Jim. Both these guys were contenders in the Strikeforce banner, winning their UFC debut in somewhat dominant fashion. So what's next? I don't want to see those two fight each other. They already did it. You know what I mean?
It seems like it's going to have to happen, though. I mean, they fought once, and I would think that Pat wants to get that fight back.
Everybody wants to get that fight back, but let's not do that. They're both training partners with BJ. They have a lot of experience working together. So will that happen? I mean, I'm sure both guys would take that fight, but I would rather see them each go separate ways. Let's not revisit the past. They're in a new promotion. I'd like to see them fight other UFC guys.
Agreed. I just think that it's probably inevitable that they're going to try to match him up. But when I just was looking at the division, and it's like every guy is either exited or is taken. And I would think that they'd be looking to get Pat by the end of the summer or September at the latest. What do you think? Sometime in September, maybe at the latest. I would think.
Yeah, probably earlier than that. Hopefully.
I'm just thinking, because the cards are going to be full, but we'll have to see what happens. I
What?
wouldn't be surprised if they offered him Josh or Gilbert. The only thing is that I kind of want to see uh, you know, those were guys that were constantly like, okay, when we used to watch Strike Force events that were, and we looked at their lightweight division, it was always like the same three guys that were kind of like, it was, Gilbert, Josh, and Pat were the guys that were the ones that were always fighting.
And KJ, and
And
KJ.
KJ, and KJ, and KJ. And so I've kind of wanted to see some different matchups with matching up guys, Strike Force from the UFC,
Yeah.
versus the UFC.
The only guy I think he should fight from Strike Force if it was to happen would be Gilbert Melendez. And the only reason I say that is because Pat spent months training for Gilbert Melendez and got that fight pulled from him twice. You know, um, I think that that fight should happen. I think it needs to happen, and you know, that's just what I think.
Yeah, that one's kind of owed. He's gonna get that fight before it's all said and done. He's 29 years old, and it's owed to him. Yeah, that one's kind of owed to him.
It is.
It really is. I wouldn't be surprised if they offered. I wouldn't be surprised if they offered him Gilbert or Josh, if you want the truth of the matter, because you have to just look at who's left in the division. So, let's look at it from Josh's standpoint. Also, we had Josh on a couple weeks ago. You talked to him all the time. Okay.
Last week.
Oh yeah, that's right. We had him on last week. Yeah, it was. It was the day before we had Nate on. That's
Yeah.
right. We had him on a couple weeks before that also.
Yeah.
Before his fight with Nate. And when we talked to him, it was like, well, who's left in the division for you to fight? He's kind of limited with Slim Pickens also. He just picked off a guy that was fighting for the belt a few months ago. Um, I'm not going to say it's slim pickings in the division because it's stacked. But if you're a top guy, if you're like in the top five over there, fighting somebody outside that top five is very risky.
Yeah, I think he broke it down really well. He'd rather fight one of the top three guys with a chance to lose than fight a kind of middle of the pack guy, and just like have a real grueling fight and win.
Yeah, I love your idea of Joe Lozon and Pat Healy.
Dude, I
Uh,
think that's a good fight. And I like Joe, even though he hasn't been on our show yet, Mr. Lazan. I don't know why, but the
been
guy's
called
not.
out, Joe. You've been called out.
I mean, I'm kind of offended actually, but outside of that, he's still a homie. But Pat's a homie too. I don't like seeing friends fight friends, but at this point, it's just kind of just gotta do it when it happens. And I think that fight makes sense, even though, like you said, Joe lost to Jim Miller. But really, I mean, that matters, but it doesn't matter so much. Pat needs a guy with a name, and Joe Lazan lends that name to him. And another win over somebody that the UFC fans are familiar with does volumes for Pat Healy as far as building his fan base with the UFC fans.
Yeah, no, I agree. Lozon is an extremely risky fight for a guy who just beat Jim Miller. He just beat the guy that beat Lozon, and Lozon is man. That's a dangerous fight for anybody in that division. I don't care who it is. He can take guys out, and he does it quick, and he does it in like shocking fashion, and he's surprised many people, many different times. So, you know, it's gonna be it's gonna be interesting to see how it happens. But yeah, that would be a very very dangerous fight for Pat. And again, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how much sense it would make for him, but we'll see. We're gonna see how it all lines up. We still have Kelvin Gastelum on the line, who won, or coming up, who won Ultimate Fighter. He picked off Uriah Hall in what was another a big upset only a couple weeks ago, and people are still buzzing about that because Uriah was just it was like the Uriah Hall show almost the whole season. So you know. Again, this upsets happen, and nothing is set in stone.
Yeah,
Guys come in there to fight.
here's what I hear. I find the storyline really intriguing, right? Because you have a guy like Kelvin, who he was picked last. He ends up winning the show. A lot of people looked past him because of the Uriah Hall hype, but one glance at this kid's record, he was undefeated as an amateur, undefeated as a pro. He proved himself every single fight in the house, and he ended up winning. He ended up winning the whole entire season. And so to me, there's a huge storyline there I'm really happy to have him on the phone. I think he's on with us now. Kelvin, are you there?
Yes, sir. What's up, man?
What's going on, bro?
Not much, man. Chilling.
Uh, let's just start off. I know we're a few weeks removed from your big win, but how has life changed for you?
It's changed dramatically, man. I got a bunch of people asking me for pictures and autographs, and I got a bunch of people congratulating me, and it's pretty exciting, man. To get recognized for what you've done and appreciated. So I'm excited.
Obviously, the biggest moment of your career was winning the trophy. But was there ever any doubt in your abilities? You were picked last, counted out, but obviously you had to believe in yourself, because if you didn't have your self-belief, you wouldn't have been able to make it as far as you did. But walk us through that whole experience.
Yeah, the fight to get into the house, I didn't really perform, so I expected to be, one of the last picks, but to actually be picked last was kind of stressful at first. I was like, man, I hope Chael picks me. And then finally I was picked last. But, I didn't know if I was going to win the whole time. I just knew that I was going to, fight my heart out and see how it all played out. And as it turned out, as you saw, in my favor.
So take us through that a little bit, Kelvin, because I've been picked last in a couple of things before, okay? Dodgeball and shit like that, and I just wanted to come out and just nail the kid with the ball. Whenever the team captains that picked me last, I just wanted to stick the ball right up their ass. So I can only imagine that you were thinking the same thing. Like, what were you thinking as you're watching this thing being picked, and you're watching guys go, this guy's going to this team, this guy's going to this team. You're thinking, shit, where am I in this line? What's going through your head?
Like I said, I was hoping to be on Chael's team, and they were picking all their guys, and it was coming down the last four, and I was like, man, I'm getting pretty close to the end, and then finally I was, chosen by Chael, thankfully.
So when you get into the house finally, and are you kind of like sizing everybody up? Like, what were the first few days like? Because obviously you spend so much time with everybody on the show that I imagine it's almost like first few dates syndrome, where everybody's kind of like, kind of putting their best foot forward, maybe a little bit in the beginning, but then the true colors kind of shine through. So how did that all unfold?
Yeah. I remember the first day being pretty good. Everybody, we all try to cook, and we all cooked. Well, actually, Josh the man cooked everybody's steaks, and we all ate together and sat down together and really got to know each other the first day and see what everybody was like. But mainly I was like you saw, keeping to myself and really observing what was going on around me and how these guys reacted and just how they acted out.
Did anybody kind of change over the course of the weeks that you were there? Did you kind of see like, well, hey, he wasn't acting like that when we first moved in here. Like he's a lot different than what I first assumed. Was there anybody that kind of surprised you in that regard, whether good or bad?
You know what? Nothing crazy like that, but Jimmy Quinlan. In the first week, he kind of came out like a smartass. That's what he came across as, and I didn't like him that much. But as I got to know him throughout the next couple of weeks, he was the guy I was hanging out with the most. That's just an example of that.
Right on. Let me ask you this, Kelvin, because this is something I'm sure you've been asked these tough questions over and over and over again. But you won your finale. Then the other finale just happened last weekend. If you want to call it a finale, the coaches' fight just took place a few days ago. Are you surprised by the outcome?
Correct.
Are you surprised by the outcome, or does part of you feel the loss for Chael? What are your thoughts on that?
No, yeah, of course. Actually, I was there front row, and I thought they stopped it a little bit too early, because I just think it was a little bit too early. It's a championship fight, it's a world title fight, and they stopped it too early. They shouldn't stop title fights that early.
I agree. The ironic thing is, imagine if they hadn't stopped that fight and Chael was able to survive round one. He would have
exactly. He probably would have won by
yeah, he would have won
disqualification.
Yeah, he would have won.
He would have won the world title.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? If you think about it.
Of course. It is.
It's amazing. Have you had do you still talk to Chael at all, or has the relationship been removed since the end of the show?
No, I mean, I've sent him a message, and every now and then he does so to me as well. So hasn't died, but there's still a communication between the coaches and I think all of us that were on the show with them.
Let me ask you this, Kelvin. A lot of times we see coming out of the Ultimate Fighter, when guys experience training with new coaches, they sometimes gravitate to those coaches. We saw it even with Michael Bisping, was training with Tito and things like that. Is there going to be any of that with you? Did you kind of gravitate to any of the other camps that you're wanting to go visit, or wanting to get some different looks with some different people?
Well, kind of, but not really. It's just a thought that ran through my mind. But I'm going to visit up in Oregon, but nothing for sure.
Oh, okay. So I was just kind of curious. Like I said, a lot of guys do that. But you do have, and I would get like hung and burned at the, or really if I didn't ask this, but a lot of the guys on the new Naiburu forum, or the 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu guys, they kind of claim you as their own. So what's the history there with you training with 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu?
Yeah, the jiu-jitsu system we have in my gym, the one that I go to, is 10th Planet. There's our jiu-jitsu coach is Brian Beaumont. He's a purple belt under Eddie Bravo, and that's who I'm under.
So was there a particular reason why you gravitated toward?
He's been there for years. So I that's the only jiu-jitsu that I've learned.
So was there a particular reason why you gravitated towards that gym and or that specific training? Because again, you see different guys have different flavors and different tastes. Is there a particular reason why you enjoy training that style and with that particular group?
Well, because it's more relatable to MMA. It's no-gi, so fighting is no-gi, and that's the only reason why. It's because you can relate. You can use it in MMA. It's built for MMA.
That it is. Let me ask you this: shortly after your win, you came out and said you were gonna do a division shift and go down to 170. What is your thought process behind that? Because you seem to do pretty good at middleweight, at least on the show. And why make the drop if things are going good for you at 185?
That's been asked a couple times already. But I just feel I'd be a lot stronger at 170s. Uriah felt real strong, and I couldn't really control him like I wanted to control him. And we made some mistakes, and I think I just feel a lot stronger.
Okay, when can the UFC fans expect you to make your UFC debut? Are you waiting on a call from the UFC? Have they given you any type of timeline of approximate months or when you'll be getting your first fight as the tough champion?
No, I haven't gotten anything, and like a phone call. That's the only thing I'm waiting on. Is just a phone call, or to hear back from Del Silva. or Dana White for a fight.
Okay.
Well, when would you like to fight next? If in the perfect time, if you're like, oh, I can pick this event, when would you like to fight?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. I'd say about 2 months, 2 or 3 months. I'm ready. I don't know which event is 2 or 3 months from now, but I'd say I'd be ready in about 2 or 3 months.
Is it
Anybody on your radar, Kelvin? As far as opponents?
No. I'll fight pretty much anybody. I got nobody in radar though.
Okay. Now, in the past, the UFC they kind of build their Ultimate Fighter champions, right? So you kind of get like the middle of the road guys, and you work up from there. Are you okay with that? I mean, are you okay with the building process that's in front of you?
I guess I am. You know, like I said, I'd fight anybody, but you know, I'd want to be given a chance of building my way up. You know, also, so I agree with it.
So you're gonna drop down and you know you were just saying like you could fight in 2-3 months. Is that a problem? It doesn't sound like a time frame's a problem to cut the weight. What is what do you normally walk around at, and what's the weight cut like for you?
You know, I guess I walk around like a 200. And you know, the weight cut shouldn't be a problem.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, sounds pretty cut and dry then. You know,
Yeah.
well, like only reason I ask is because you know
Yeah.
I get the different. I get I get different answers. We had Pat Healy on just a few minutes ago, and he's like, well, you know, he's like, I'm not gonna say it's easy. You know, it sucks, but it's doable. And then
Yeah. Of course. It's gonna suck. You know, I gotta eat right and really exercise, and I hate it. You know, I like to eat my burgers and pizzas. But you know, that's you know, but you know, my mentality right now is, you know, I'm in the UFC and I'm in a, you know, I'm a pro and I'm gonna do what I have to do to make the weight.
do you see yourself fighting at 170 pounds for the foreseeable future, or are you thinking like, oh, you know, I'll fight at 170 for now, but 200 pounds is still considered a pretty sizable welterweight. Do you think that 185 could be in your future later on in your career?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I can definitely see myself as a middleweight later down the road as my body keeps evolving. You know, I think I'm still young and kind of young, you know, but you know, I'm still growing and getting stronger.
Well, you know, and actually, and I don't mean to go back in a totally different direction here, but I meant to ask you this before when we were talking about Ultimate Fighter stuff, real quick. So, how's the bike?
You know what? I haven't gotten it yet, man.
What?
I haven't gotten it yet. Yeah.
Oh, wait, hold on. So we sat there and looked at this bike every week. The camera was showing this shiny bike. We had watched an episode. 10 minutes of the episode was you picking out parts for this bike, but you have not ridden this thing yet.
No. I haven't gotten it yet. I haven't received the bike yet.
So when do you expect to get that? Are you a bike guy? Do you ride those things, or do you ride them? Or some people are.
You know what? When I actually went to the dealer, when Dana took us, I fell in love with him. But before that, I wasn't. And I fell in love with him, and I was like, man, I really want a bike now.
They are addictive, man. They are addictive. I'm surprised you haven't gotten it yet,
dude,
though.
Yeah, I fell in love with it, and I was like, man, now I do really want this bike.
So what's the time frame? When can you expect that? We don't know when you're fighting, but we might have an idea of when you're getting your bike next.
You know what? I'm sorry to say, but they haven't even told me that. They're just like, you know what? We'll contact you.
Amazing.
And we'll contact you in a couple of weeks. Yeah, it sucks, but I mean,
Well, it'll come, and it'll be worth the wait, I'm sure.
yeah. Well, that's what they told me. You know, the contract said up to 4 months. They'll contact me, and
Okay.
but we'll see.
Okay, there we go. There we go. Well, let me switch gears a little bit, Kelvin. We don't have much more time with you left, but you're in right now this phase where fans know who you are. But we don't really know much about you as like a person. So what kind of guy are you? Are you the Chael Sonnen type of guy? Can we expect some trash talk from you? Leading up to the fights. Are you a family guy? Are you a religious man? Tell me something that the fans should know about you that maybe we don't know yet.
You know what? I don't do the Chael Sonnen call outs or anything like that. He's a pro at it. I can't do that. He makes it look good. I wish I knew how to do that, but but no, I don't do that. I guess you would say I'm the more family type, religious kind. That would be my type.
Okay. So do you have a family of your own? Wife, kid, etc.?
No. Just I've always been real close to my family, my mom and my sister and everybody. So that's the only reason why.
Okay, so when we build you up and us as media, we start building up the Kelvin Gastelum character. We're gonna build you up as this nice family guy. Is that what you're telling me? Is that the way we're gonna go with this?
You know what? If I wanted to, I could get mean.
Right on.
But you might see that side of me, but you'll never know. I don't know. I can get aggressive sometimes when I'm excited,
Right on. How are you handling all the media? Because obviously you're coming from virtual obscurity where most people didn't know your name, and you're pushed into the spotlight overnight. So is this all kind of surreal, and how are you handling it?
Right now I'm kind of just going with the flow of things and trying to enjoy myself. This is something I've always dreamed of, and I'm making my dreams come true. So I think I'm having it pretty good.
Right on. Well, it sounds like it, man. You definitely sound like you have a real good head on your shoulders, and you know what you want to do, and you know how you're gonna get there. As for our time with you tonight, brother, we're done. We're about to cut off the air. But I want to thank you very much for taking the time out of your day today and hopping on BJPenn.com radio with us. We wish you the best of luck in your future, and hopefully when you get the fight booked, I can hit you up and we can get you back on the show.
Not a problem, man. Thanks for having me on. I'd love to be back on.
Perfect. We'll definitely be in touch, man. And please, when you get that bike, send us a tweet, man. Let us know you got it so we can let everybody else back at home know that you got the bike.
All right, will do, man.
All right, brother. Have a good night, man. Thanks, Kelvin.
Take care, man.
George, hey, everybody listen at home. George always makes me say goodbye to the listeners.
He closes the show. He opens, he should close, I'm just filler. I'm just filler. Like this, if you're looking at the sandwich, there's bread on either side, all right? I'm just like lettuce or tomato or some shit, okay? This is the bread. Pedro is the bread. He's the boar's head turkey. He's the whole nine. I'm a lowly pickle.
I'm always like, George, you close this one out, and he just like turns his mic down. He's like, no, and he points to me. He just won't do it. So I'm like, all right, let me say thank you, and I'm genuine with what I tell them, but there's always that awkward thing where you don't want to keep these guys on too long, and obviously we have a schedule to keep. You know what I mean? So we kind of got to keep the schedule, in a proper format. But
because there's a couple times where we're just talking. Where really we could go on for like way longer, and we end up having to cut it off because of time constraints.
Yep. What's going to be real interesting is, I would say, give this kid a year to 2 years, right, in the UFC. If he keeps winning, or rather, as long as he holds a winning record, or even a 50, like a 500 record, right? um, to see the development of his character and his comfort on a radio show and doing the interviews because he had his moments, right? I always analyze this. I think I always this is probably a habit of mine. I analyze these interviews after we do them, but he had his moments where he was real talkative, laughing. We saw some character. We had some other moments where I felt like he didn't really know what to say, you know. But he's still adapting and getting used to his time in the spotlight. So
Yeah,
should be real interesting over the course of the next few years. We'll keep having him on. You know, we'll build that relationship and we'll see how it goes.
yeah, no, for sure, and I'm sure a lot of it, like he had said, is that he's been asked a lot of the same questions, and I'm sure that's tiring after a while, and I get that. But we have to ask we have to ask what we have to ask, and we'll talk about some other stuff like the bike and things like that. But yeah, he's just gonna go through a little bit of adjustment period with dealing with a lot of media, I guess.
He
And
said
yeah.
he said he can be mean. He's like, I was like, so we're gonna build you up as the nice family guy, right? And he goes, well, hold up, I can be mean too. So we'll just see how it goes. I'm like, oh, there we go.
Yeah, well, he could definitely be mean in that cage, that's for sure. He puts it down, man. And yeah, but we'll see. He's young. He's got a long way to go. I wonder what kind of opponent he's going to get in his debut.
He's gonna get well, obviously, like for example, Jay Heron. He's not with the UFC anymore. Um, I don't. A lot of welterweight names don't really stand out to me right now for some reason. But I would say somebody on the Jay Heron level. You know, they're gonna have to build this kid up. So
Yeah, it's I don't know who they it's weird. I always think back to like you know, really like Bisping seems to be one of the main stars that came off that show, that won that show, that has such good staying power. He wins big fights. He's kind of in the picture. He's popular. He gets a lot of press. And when I look at the first fight that he got, who did he get? Like Elvis Sinisek or somebody like that?
yep, that's exactly who he got.
Yeah. So I kind of look at the opponent that we're probably looking at somebody in that caliber, somebody who's established, has a name, but is going to give him some different, going to show him some different things inside the cage, but isn't gonna kill him.
Let's give him Amir Sadallah. Tough winner versus tough winner.
Man, that'd be a good fight, probably, huh?
I think honestly, like, okay, before I say this, I don't want people to think that we jock ride the guys that are on our show because we really don't. But Gastelum crushes Amir. Just my opinion.
The stylistically, well, Amir's tough on, he's tough. That would be a good fight. I'm not gonna say I'm acting like it's a made fight already the way I'm talking about it. The fight has not been made, and we just understand we are talking out of our asses right now. Just complete, this is make believe land. Like we're talking here right now. We're not, but it would be a good fight. It would be a good fight. You call two good fights. That'd be good. Lozon and Healy, and now this one. There you go, man.
I'm telling you,
Perhaps you should take Joe Silva's job.
I think I could do it, bro.
You can have his job as long as I can have his paycheck. You can do all the matchmaking you want.
I would have re-signed Chet Congo. That's what I know.
You would have, or you wouldn't
I
have?
would have if I was Joe Silva.
You would have re-signed Czech Congo. Really? Why?
Dude, he's been with the promotion 7 years. The guy is always do or die, right? He either kills or he gets killed. You know what I mean? Like there's really not much in between with Chet Congo. He did have
Yeah.
that. He did have that one boring fight with who? With
Yeah, I was about to say they haven't always been like that. But are you saying this because he's been, really the fights are exciting because he was on the receiving end of knockouts? Is that why you want to keep on seeing him fight? Because he's been on the receiving end of a lot of hard punches, and that's what
Well, the one that comes to mind for me is Pat Barry. Dude, what was that? That was a crazy freaking fight, right? When Pat Barry dropped him twice, he gets back up, he's backpedaling, catches him, and knocks him out. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? Like, the guy goes out there and he performs.
I
He has had some boring fights. True. He did drop Cain Velasquez, the current UFC heavyweight champ, a couple times, if I'm not mistaken. Either. You know what I mean? Like,
did. It was like 4 years ago, and all I'm just gonna remind you of is that all I'm gonna remind you of is that 4 years ago Fedor was number one heavyweight in the world too. Okay, so now that we can move on past 4 years ago, and no, but seriously, I get that. I just think that he's I mean, how old is Congo now? What is he, 36, 37?
I don't know. Is he that old?
Yeah, I think that, it can't be that easy to compete at that level, at that age, and especially his style was to sit there and bang. And he's had kickboxing fights, and
Dude.
I think he's had like Muay Thai fights, and there's
Yeah.
probably a lot of mileage.
And that Roy Nelson fight was just a really terrible matchup for him, man. That was a bad matchup, dude. You have to have a freaking chin on you if you're gonna go in there and bang with Big Country, because Big Country is gonna put some hands on you. You know what I mean? Um, that dude is an animal.
I think it was more over if you look at the last four performances, and even then, the last four, he's 2-2. I'm looking at his record now, and
Yeah,
what I
yeah, yeah,
remember is that Mitrione and Sean Jordan were the two wins. Do you actually remember watching these fights?
yeah. I do.
Okay,
They sucked.
they were terrible fights.
They
They were
sucked.
terrible. Okay, well, we know that. Okay, they were wins, but they were terrible. And then in between those two wins, there's now two losses of where he was just knocked out, right? So I think that's kind of what did it. It was like, well, when you want, he almost was pushing himself into that Fitch syndrome, where like, well, the ones you won were not that exciting, weren't that great, nothing to write home to mom about, and then you dropped a couple, and I think that's what kind of did it.
Yeah.
But I don't know that he didn't get cut though. Apparently, right? You said that he or I don't know. There was something about
He didn't
his
renew.
con-
Chet
yeah.
Congo, on his own accord, decided not to renew with the UFC. It wasn't the other way around. Which, whatever, maybe him and Rampage have something up their sleeve. I doubt it. From what I know, okay, I live in Mission Viejo, California. So does Rampage. So does Congo. And from what I know, at least on Rampage's end, I don't think he has any plans to fight. I can't say that personally, but from what I see and from my mutual friends that we have, this dude's in the club. You should see how Rampage parties, man. He's got like stacks of bills. I'm talking like fistfuls of cash. And he's just in the club, popping bottles, super rock star status. Um, so I don't know if that guy's mind is right to fight. Um, I know him and Congo are tight, like I said, so maybe in the next few months we're gonna start seeing Congo in the club popping bottles with Rampage. I don't really know, but they both live out here, so I'm sure I'll see it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, why would he turn the deal down? Or, was you would if they offered him a new deal and he was coming off of, they said they offered him a new deal right before 159.
They did, yeah, that's what they did.
Okay. So, well, if his deal ran out, then they probably looked at the performance of the last whatever contract he was on, right? And the performance showed two knockout losses and two boring wins,
Yeah,
right? And I'm sure that reflected the money offer that was offered to him. I mean, I would think logically, at least I'm just trying to think logically here, and I don't know anything that anybody else knows. I'm simply just thinking as logically, I would think that they would look at the record and what he's done recently, and if his deal was up, they would renegotiate that deal based on his most recent performances, off the performances of his most recent contract. And it didn't look good, and they probably, I would think that they cut the money.
here's something interesting, man. I'm so sorry that I'm not continuing this topic right here, but I have some things. Um, George, are you by a computer right now?
Yep.
Go to our Twitter, and we have a guy, kind of here,
Let's see what.
going on. His name is Tyron T Woodley. Oh, excuse me, Tyron T Woodley.
Where are you at? I'm trying to see where you're at on our Twitter.
He says at BJ Penn Radio, no problem. I'm focused on taking fights against top welterweights and not running from them. Tell the sponge soak. Tell the sponge soak that up and have a waffle chicken. Didn't you get a?
Oh,
Di-
I'll let you read it. I'll let you read the tweet.
Says at BJ Penn Radio. Didn't you get a call from Carlos Condit 2 to 3 for at Carlos Condit 2 to 3 months?
So Tyron was listening to Tarek. All right, let's just recap it for anybody who's listening right now. Apparently, Tyron was listening to Tarek's interview, which took place about what, an hour ago? Not even 40 minutes ago, 45 minutes ago.
Yeah, apparently.
And explain it again. He's upset apparently, or he's making reference to some comments that Tarek had talked about earlier. Is that about right, or am I?
It could be our Twitter guy, Mr. Adam Conklin. Props to Adam, brother. I know you're listening right now because you are a diligent Twitter poster. He could be posting like crazy on Twitter, which is I'm assuming is what he's doing. He's probably signing Tyron T. Woodley, and Tyron is responding, to Adam's tweets on the at bjpen.com radio Twitter feed. Um,
I got it.
you know
There
what
you
I
go.
mean? That's probably what's going on.
Okay.
I could say yeah, Tyron's listening to our show. Who doesn't listen to our show? But the reality of that is he's probably not listening to our show, but he is probably checking his Twitter feed and seeing the mentions. You know what I mean? Which is interesting.
Yeah. As I'm reading a tweets at BJ Penn Radio, the at Tarek fighter was referencing Tarek Saffiedine that lost every round and wouldn't fight at Carlos Condit, which I begged for. Fight fellow non-marketable welterweight Maya at UFC. So he's tagging at UFC and telling him to go fight Maya, you know, and you know, hey, he's gonna respond to that. These are both guys who are trying to make their statement in the UFC welterweight division. We talked about how stacked it was, and I'm not surprised that you're gonna have to say, why not, man? Let's play matchmaker. You're on a good Joe Silva streak tonight with the way you're matchmaking. So you want to make another one right now?
For who?
Gonna-
For Woodley?
For Woodley after the next fight, for each of them after their next fights are done, you can start matchmaking already.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna put Woodley in with Tarec Saffiedine. That's too much of a risk. They want to try to ride the Saffiedine train. If he can get past Robbie Lawler, they can market this guy as the last reigning Strikeforce champion, right? So that's a big feather in their cap, and they can continue to give him matchups that stylistically will not only appease fans, but that he has a chance of winning. I think that what we saw in the past with Woodley is Woodley has the style to beat Tarec, right? He's a really strong wrestling-based guy who has that grinding style, and I don't think that much will change if they rematch. I know Tarek said that he would like the rematch. Why not? I don't really recall anything that Tarek said that was really that bad towards Woodley though. Um,
No, I think he just kind of like alluded to the potential rematch. I think you had asked about it. Was a question you asked, and that was it. Completely legitimate question in the sense that hey, it's one of the lone blemishes, and everybody wants those fights back. We kind of referenced it when we were talking about Pat and Josh also.
yeah, interesting. Okay, well, there's some beef there. Even though he won the fight, right? Like Tyron won the fight. You know what I mean? Like he already beat him. I don't get it. Whatever. That's cool though. Thanks, Adam,
Yeah.
for the heads up on that, man. Um, Also, George, this whole Twitter thing is kind of new to me. I really don't use it that much. I know you have a Twitter. I have a Twitter. I don't ever hop on Twitter, man. Luckily, we got Adam for the BJ Penn Radio Twitter. He does an awesome job because he handles that kind of stuff. But now that he brought to my attention that we're getting tweets and all this stuff, the Diaz brothers are retweeting our show, which is pretty cool. I don't know if you caught that, but that's pretty cool. Thanks, Diaz brothers.
Yeah, no, yeah. Shout out to them. Man, I love talking to Nick and Nate. We could have Nate on every week.
Yeah, if he would come on, that's the problem. This guy, okay, here's the thing, right? I think we realize this. Nate doesn't do interviews. And he told me this before we did the interview. He's like, man, I'm sorry, bro. I don't give you guys more interviews. I don't do interviews. But when I do an interview, it's because I got something to say. I don't want to bore anybody. But when I give an interview, it's going to be a good interview. Well, I'm sold on that. I'm sold on that motto. You know what I mean? I'm sold on that philosophy. As long as he comes to us for the interviews, bro, take as long as you want, Nate. You know what I mean? You want to take another year off before you do another interview? We're cool with that. Just come to us when you do it. You know what I mean? Because that was hella good, bro. That was so good.
Oh my gosh, man. Pure money right there. That was pure money. And, really, I knew, I mean, as we were talking to him, I was thinking, like, wow, this is pretty epic. Because, he, he won't pull any punches, and he speaks his mind. His brother's the same way, and they're not the only fighters who are like that, but they really have a lot of charisma and personality to them, and there's no one like. You couldn't get anybody to play. I challenge you right now to find an actor on earth that can play Nick Diaz. It does not exist. Like, you cannot do it. You might be able to get somebody to imitate his voice, but you'll never the person, who they are, and their personalities. You just can't duplicate it.
I mean, I was surprised at how much he talked like Nick in that interview. Nate I think is widely considered the brother of with, and I don't know how to say this delicately, but with a better head on his shoulders, right?
They call him level-headed.
Yeah, level-headed. He's more politically correct, but not in that interview, bro. He was just like, down with this and down with that and up with this and up with this and completely sounded just like Nick. I thought it was very fascinating. Obviously, we got a ton of good feedback, so maybe we try to get Nick on next. I don't know. I'm sure the fans would love a Nick Diaz interview. That is probably harder than getting Nate Diaz on the line, but if we get a few retweets, maybe, or a few requests for Nick Diaz, I'll get him on the radio. But
Yeah.
But I have to have some fan requests. So I would say I don't need many fan requests. We don't have like the biggest Twitter following right now since we're kind of a new concept, you and I, George. But so if I get a couple requests for Nick Diaz on the show, I'll get him on the show. I want to say real quick, I want to give a shout out to our listeners in Scotland, especially this guy named Ned. Ned's the man. What's up, Ned? Thanks for listening, bro.
I have one more thing I want to ask you.
Okay.
Because I know we're about to end this right now. It's completely unrelated. Where are my greens? If I'm gonna stab somebody in the face soon, if I don't get some, literally, I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna kill a fool.
I don't know, man. I don't know where the greens are, bro. I'm dry over here too. My girl, the supermodel I got in the next room, she's dying for greens too. I'm dying for greens. You're dying for greens. What are the greens? I'm sure the listeners will find out what the greens are next week, probably. But right now, we'll just keep that between us.
We'll keep quiet. Okay. Active ingredient is crack at this point. That's all you need to know.
It's not really crack, but
but it is that good. It's that good. Makes you feel that awesome, and you would never think that from a natural substance you would feel that freaking awesome. I thought it was complete nonsense.
There's a supplement company that has recently sponsored us. That we will announce next week on the show, probably, that I have been using for over a year now, and we've been in negotiations for almost just as long, but it's a product that's really good. It's not just one product, actually. They have a whole product line of nutritional supplements, and I tell you what, guys, I can't live without them. We're actually going to have a landing page on their website for the bjpen.com radio listeners. They can get the discount, they can get hooked up, they can get the bundle packages, they can get all this stuff. I highly recommend them. The whole team, Pan, we're all on it. You know what I mean? That's all good stuff. And we'll talk about that next week, but it's really exciting times.
Yeah. If I can survive till next week without them, without killing somebody and get thrown in jail, we'll talk about it next week for sure.
Yeah.
At any rate, it was a good show, man. You think?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty good. I liked our guest panel, Burt Watson. Burt Watson didn't disappoint. Tarec Saffiedine, he talked again, like I said when I was analyzing the interview. He gave us more than I thought we were going to get from him. I didn't really know what to expect, but pleasantly surprised. Uh, Pat Healy, always good to hear from Pat. You know, we've been following him a long time, and like I said when we were on the air with him, he's part of the Team Penn family, man. You know, he trains up there in Oregon. You know, he's got Team Quest roots. He's got all these different roots, but he's part of Team Penn, whether he admits that or not, or whether he wants to admit that or not. He's down with the crew, you know. And Kelvin, who we just had on, he's a good guy. I can't wait to get him to burst out of his shell a little bit. I think he has a story. Like I said before we even got him on, he's got a story, and I'm fascinated to watch his career unfold in front of our very eyes. Um, Next week, I think we're gonna have another good panel. I try to get Roy Nelson on tonight. Roy is kind of he's kind of a character, you know. So he kind of beats to his own drum. We're gonna get him on next week, though, for sure. I think I have that pretty locked down. It would have been nice to have him on this week because it's right after his fight. But he was doing like a UFC fan chat today, and he was pretty busy, so we couldn't get him on while we were on the air. But next week for sure, we're gonna get Big Country on the air. And I don't know who else, man. Maybe Nick Diaz if somebody sends out some tweets to us. But if not, you know, no Nick Diaz, no worries. If nobody wants to hear him, we don't got to do it.
Yeah, if nobody wants to hear an hour with Nick Diaz, I mean, then don't bother tweeting about it.
Well, no big deal.
Yeah, the seeds have been laid.
Yeah, and I don't know. I guess before we let this broadcast click off, which is nice because we don't have a timer anymore. You know, if you notice, we're 23 minutes over the limit, but we're still going strong. Why? Because we're on our own servers, fools. Screw that other place we were on.
We don't talk about them.
Yeah, we don't talk about them, but we should talk about Fisticuff Radio this Sunday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Fisticuff Radio with Anton Skoro. He is the man. This guy is so down for his cause. He got the tattoo of the Fisticuff logo on his fist just a couple days ago. If you can't have respect for that and the content and the pride he has behind his label, then I don't know what's wrong with you. But definitely tune into them on Sunday, bjpenn.com. The next night, Monday, late night cage side, right? They're on at 10 p.m. Eastern. That's 7 p.m. Pacific. Our hosts, Tony and Chase, bring the heat every single week. Last week they had Marlos Kunin and Matt Hughes on, so they're doing pretty good. And of course, this is our flagship show. We're the ones with the big balls around here.
This is the varsity squad, son.
Yeah, bjpenn.com radio with the host George Matthews. You know.
Yeah, varsity squad, man. But yeah, good show again. We had a lot of good guests on the site this week. You know, you just rattled off pretty much all of them there. But yeah, we've always got good guests, and we will continue to bring that.
Yeah,
so
we will.
So let's just cut it off, man. Like let's before we sit there and run over for an extra hour here. Let's just cut it off and till next week, man.
Nah, I don't really want to cut it off.
You don't want to cut it off? Well, I'm cutting it off.
All right, yeah, let's do it. We're done. All right, guys, everybody, thanks for listening at home. Mr. Woodley, sorry if you got upset. We'd love to have you on the show, sir, if you want to come on. I don't really know what that was about. All of our guests, all of our listeners, awesome. Thank you. Our whole bjpenn.com crew. Writers, get to work. Start busting out these interviews. You hear me? I'm the boss. You got to do it. Do it now. Everybody else, thanks for listening. Thanks, George, for joining us.
All right, man. Till next week.